Deborah Brosnan is a scientist, environmental entrepreneur and a marine resilience specialist. She's also president of Deborah Brosnan and Associates. She joins me now from Washington. Thanks so much for doing so. Let's talk about what's come out of this. How important, for a start, is the fact that after 4 years of Donald Trump, including pulling out of the US Paris Accords and the Paris Accords and so on, how important is it that the US is back in a leadership position as the world faces these critical issues?
Oh, I think this is tremendously important. This is probably one of the most exciting times for the US in a long time. This was a huge success for President Biden and a huge success for the US. He signaled to the rest of the world that America is back in business. America is back doing what it does best, which is leadership, innovation, entrepreneurship, and bringing the rest of the world together. This was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, there is such urgency on this issue of emissions. I mean, time quite literally running out to mitigate what's already happening. Are you confident we are perhaps moving past noble words and into meaningful and impactful action?
I'm optimistic that we're moving past these pledges and promises, which we've heard for many years now. And we did hear some of it, and particularly on day one. Certainly there was an element of, I think, countries showing up for what I call a cup of tea and a chat and talking about what they're doing without necessarily saying how. But I think as the conference progressed, and certainly into day two, we began to see a little more about how we're going to get there.
Yeah, something that the President did on day two was he made that economic case for fighting climate change. And that's a significant aspect of winning over doubters, isn't it? That the fact that moving to renewables is actually good for the economy and jobs, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think if we look at the data and the facts, right now there are 3 times as many jobs in renewable energy as there are in fossil fuel energy. And the IMF came out recently and said there are at least 18 million jobs to be had in green technology. So these numbers are already very high. I think our challenge is to help educate the rest of the world that have been perhaps schooled in more the fossil fuel industries that climate change and protecting the planet against climate change is not synonymous with losing jobs or prosperity. In fact, quite the opposite.
And China and Russia, to that point, they both attended the meeting. You still have Russia chomping at the bit to drill in the Arctic. I mean, China added more coal plants last year than the rest of the world took offline. It's significant they showed up, but can you see, for example, China moving quickly enough?
Yes, I can see it start to move faster, similarly with Russia, because I think there's something very important. One is that China and Russia are experiencing climate change just like the rest of us. Northern China has experienced water droughts. Russia has permafrost melting. It has more wildfires. They're suffering just like the rest of the world. They're having to deal with the same problems. So I think it's not surprising they showed up. I think they showed up because they've got concerns and they have something to offer. I think they showed up because America was leading too.
We're almost out of time, but I wanted to run this by you too. I mean, speak to the view expressed by many that climate change is a crisis multiplier. It has national security implications because you've got these flow-on effects of everything from weather, of course, but food, crop issues, forced migration, and competition for resources and so on.
Absolutely, I think climate change is one of the most wicked problems because it's so interconnected. When we have droughts, when we have livestock, people are displaced, they move into cities, we get an increase in crime, we get migration, we get refugees. Pretty much all of the ills in the world can be traced back in some way or other now to climate change problems. And absolutely, it's a wicked problem. We've got to be tackling it on all fronts. But I believe that we can.
Deborah Brosnan, thanks so much. Fascinating to speak with you, and let's talk again.
Thank you so much for having me, Michael. It's a pleasure.
Now, the SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule, now in orbit, is racing towards the International Space Station, where it